I am Stephanie Matsuba, and I'm an actress and documentary filmmaker. When I was young, like maybe 6, 7, I was always very easily irritable as a child. So even when I was little, everyone would just say, oh, Stephanie gets kind of irritated. And it almost became a little bit like a joke. In school, sometimes that same thing would happen where I wouldn't be able to really explain it, but I didn't want to be touched. I didn't like being hugged, which of course is like very difficult for people to understand when you're a little kid and they just want to give you love. But it wasn't all the time. It would just be sometimes. As I was having like more irritability as a young person, when my irritability would increase, I would almost explode, like blow up. So something like minor would happen, like a little something, maybe something after a soccer game or something where it wasn't a temper tantrum. It would just be something really subtle that only I could really notice. And then I would feel irritable, and then the irritability would be so overwhelming that I would explode and either yell or have like a very large reaction for something that seemed maybe minor. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder when I was 17. I was going to school at the time. I was in college. It was my freshman year of college. I was misdiagnosed with bipolar 1. I actually live with bipolar 2, and I try not to get too clinical or medicinal because I know everybody has different comfortable ways of like speaking about their illness. But yeah, I live with bipolar 2. It's wild. When you're living with something that you don't know what it is, you don't think you're living with anything. You think it's just you. So when I was in high school, I remember it was after the homecoming dance. I was probably like 15. I got so sick. I couldn't really describe it, but physically, mentally, emotionally, I didn't feel good. And people would ask me, what is it? I said, I don't know. I don't feel good. Well, flash forward, I ended up having a couple of multiple surgeries with things that I still needed to have. They weren't wrong, but I still had that same feeling. And I ended up missing about half of my junior year of high school, which meant I almost had to repeat my junior year of high school. And looking back now, we know that was my first major depressive episode. But again, you don't know what's happening. I didn't understand what I was feeling in my body, so every time I tried to explain it, it wasn't really making sense or it wasn't consistent, so that made me shy away from talking about it. But that was, I would say, the first thing that really started leading to my diagnosis, because that was how I started going to therapy. And then after that, when I went to school and I was studying acting at USC, I would be unstoppable. I'd be in class, I was doing plays, I could stay up all night. I could do these incredible things. I could party for like 4 days with no sleep. And those things, especially as a young person, make you like cool and fun. But that came with this intense, my brain would take over. I couldn't control what I was feeling. Sometimes I couldn't get out of bed for like weeks at a time, would miss class. I can count probably 10 times where I was truly so overwhelmed that I felt like I couldn't handle being alive. I would say to my friend, well, mainly to my family, specific members of my family, I'd say, I can't explain it. I feel like I'm gonna die. And it would be, with bipolar disorder, I'll have almost, at that time when I wasn't managing my illness at all, I would have very high highs and very low lows. But my danger came in the low times. And a lot of the things that onset it were things that naturally happen: high stress, jet lag, maybe emotional stress that you might not understand, almost like a little girl getting her period. It's like something that is already weird and awkward enough, but like amplified would lead to either a mania or depression. When I was in high school and I had that intense depressive episode and I was just at home by myself, my mom would be there. That was the first time I was like, I don't know how to go back to school. I don't know how to do anything. And then in college, that was the second time I started feeling, if I can't go to class, if I can't answer someone's phone call, what is wrong with me? Like, there's supposed to be something really wrong with me that if I feel like I can't go outside, or if I go outside, I'll feel crazy. Like I couldn't groom myself. I couldn't do things that, to me, made me feel really weak. My friends were all living in different places. My parents were there, but they had their own stuff going on, and I was very good at hiding what was going on with me. The only thing that was different is that a huge part of my illness that is something that happens to me is I'll have very large weight gains or weight losses. So when I was in my major depressive episode when I was a teenager, I probably gained like 50 pounds. So this next one, I had gained 100 pounds. So people start assuming things like, oh, do you have lupus? Or what is this? So then even more so, when you physically don't feel like yourself, you mentally don't feel like yourself. I had a moment where I was just like, what am I even doing? I would look at myself in the mirror and think, I hate myself. Like I hate myself and I don't even deserve to be here. I can't even go outside. So clearly I shouldn't be here. And until I started really managing my illness, I would have that same pattern every 18 months. I call it when I'm in outer space. But it would feel almost like I was floating and that it wouldn't matter if I just kept floating away into the abyss. And then now looking back, it's like something inside of me knew, even if I was having these horrible thoughts, like something inside me knew I was still supposed to be here. In those moments, I think I feel really grateful for is that I gravitated towards people that I knew would notice what was going on with me. And even if I was doing it subconsciously, that's what I did. And my grandmother specifically, I went to live with her. And it's hard to hide what's going on with you from your grandma. Getting a mental health diagnosis, especially when you don't understand, you just think, wow, cool, my life's over. It's been real, but there's not everything I thought I was gonna do. Well, too bad. And, especially if you're giving in to not taking care of yourself, and then you're in the dark moments, you're like, well, it's all proven right. I'm a crazy person, I'm gonna die, and no one's gonna care. I just feel really grateful that I had people around me that noticed and made me realize that I wasn't alone and that my life didn't have to be over. Mental illness runs on both sides of my family. Excuse me. So in my grandma's case, she had seen it all. Schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, borderline. Whether people were diagnosed, not diagnosed within my family, she's seen it before. So when she saw it happening with me, I think that she intuitively knew not to push me into force me into handling it in a way that it felt like she was giving me medicine. I think she encouraged me to do things that she knew would allow me to create foundation to really take care of myself. So she would be like, did you exercise today? Like, why don't you go outside? Did you make sure that you went to sleep last night? Things that seem really, really minor, but now that's like the foundation of how I'm able to take care of myself. And she's like made jokes about taking medication, so it didn't feel so scary. But just being able to have someone that it wasn't these conversations where we sit down and be like, so how's bipolar disorder going today? It would just be normal. And the normalization of it was what made me realize, oh, maybe this is something that could be managed. This is something that isn't going to ruin my whole freaking life. But she was so instrumental in that. And I just feel so grateful for her. For anyone that thinks they shouldn't be here, first of all, that's incorrect. We all should be here, otherwise we wouldn't be. And I think that it's really important, and this is how I feel, a huge reason that I felt like I really didn't need to be here was because I'd never seen anyone that looked like me experiencing what I was feeling. And it's not common to talk about anything that has to do with mental health, mental illness, and communities of color. So it even more so made me feel like when I was looking in the mirror and looking at myself and experiencing these feelings where I don't need to be on planet Earth anymore, because there was nothing that I saw that even felt remotely relatable, it was easier for me to go into that dark hole of what it was further and further. So I think just in terms of giving anyone advice, if they are feeling that way, just knowing that that's the feelings that they're feeling are temporary. They will be able, it's not gonna be easy necessarily, but if you have hope, you will still be able to have the life that you want, do the things that you want. I've always used to tell myself, I'm like, I promise, if you can just pull yourself, like you can just do one little thing, Stephanie, like just do this one little thing. Like in a week, it'll be better. It's not too late to change your mind.